good to see everyone. And I have to say I'm nervous. I'm used to preaching the Bible, and now I'm talking about exercise. It's a good thing, but it has a little bit of an edge to it that's new. Did anybody run the Prairie Fire, by the way? Anybody in the 5K, half? Maybe next year you'll be there. Some of you that enjoy it. That'd be great. I want to say, the first thing I want to say as we begin is, as Dr. Brett listed off, there are quite a list of health practices. I think it's about 8 if you calculate them up. And the one important thing to emphasize is that healthy lifestyle is about lifestyle. It's a lifestyle approach. If as an individual, I was looking at a book by Dr. Life, interesting book. He made a very important point. He said that when you start a healthy diet, don't stop that diet. And here's the reason why. This is diet, this is exercise, this is everything. When we make lifestyle changes, we make them because the lifestyle we have is not giving us the result we want, right? That's when we make lifestyle changes, right? So if the lifestyle that I had before got me to a place I didn't want to be, if I go back to that lifestyle, where am I going? Back to where I was. So you've got to, so lifestyle, it's about lifestyle. That's why it's not so much making huge changes and then going back when after you've gone through the diet, you reach your how it is on wedding days, the bride and maybe the groom, they go out and get tan, and they go, the lady tries the wedding dress on, and then after, it's not such a big deal. They fit the wedding dress, the wedding day's over. But lifestyle really is about changing. It's not the diet that matters or the dieting that matters. It's what you do every day for the long run. So we're about making changes that are long-term changes. It's better to make a small adaptation that you're going to stick with than to make major changes and go back regularly, just go back to your lifestyle. Because again, if you go back, you're still on the same road that you didn't want to be on. My son likes to make a track. We have about 30 feet of almost trained plastic track. It's real easy to set up. And sometimes he gets so excited he'll start the train before the track is finished. You know where it's headed, right? To the break in the track. Well, he can pick the train up and put it back on the track at 3 feet, but where's it headed? The break in the track. Okay, I've said enough. I just wanted to make it really clear that lifestyle changes are really important to make changes and then hold to them as best we can. That will give you the long-term benefits, which is really what we're looking for in lifestyle. A little bit about myself. I like to move. There's a picture of my family and some friends. My wife and I are in the back. This is after finishing the Prairie Fire. And then my kids are on your left there, 99 and 100. They ran 1 mile. They ran 12 miles before the race. 1 mile, usually 1 or 2 miles at a time. And then on race day, they ran 1.1 miles, and all 3 of these kids got medals because they finished. And next year, we're going to run 25 miles with them ahead of the race, and they'll get to finish the marathon. I don't know if my wife and I will follow their footsteps, but at least they'll be able to finish the marathon. And so just a great way to be involved. So a little bit more about my life. I like being outdoors. That's what I like to do. And my lifestyle is a rather sedentary lifestyle. I do office stuff. I sit in my car to make visits. And so in general, I have a sedentary lifestyle. And the things I like to do, like hiking and cycling, off-road cycling, that's great, but it's not real practical for a regular lifestyle. Especially in Kansas, there's not much off-road cycling that has any real interest. It's flat out there. I'm sorry, it's a beautiful country, but it's not real good mountain bike cycling if you understand that. I was diagnosed as an adult with ADD, and I see markers that in my family, and sometimes wish my parents and sister would get checked out. But so that kind of put me on a journey to finding out what is ADD and how can I better manage it so it has a less negative impact on the marriage, on the ministry, and that's been a journey since that discovery. It was helpful for me discovering it, and in discovering it, leading me to study more and discover how my brain works, what's going on with me, and how to adapt my lifestyle to improve that. This is not about ADD, but that's part of my journey. And part of the ADD coping is exercise, because exercise has a huge impact on brain chemistry. And I'll show you a book by Dr. Rady called Spark. If you haven't read the book, I'll show you the cover of it. If you haven't read the book Spark and you need an excuse to exercise, get the book. If you're not a reader, get the audio version. If you're a reader, then get the book and read it. Then I was at Goodwill one time, and I was in Michigan before we moved here, and I grabbed a book on triathlons. It looked exciting to me. It was cheap. I don't know if the price is still there, but you know, Goodwill stuff is cheap. And then it got thrown in the car when we moved here, and I thought, you know, it's nice and exciting to look at the pictures and think about, you know, maybe be doing that someday. But I really didn't think that I could be a triathlete or even finish a triathlon. But my father-in-law came down with cancer. And we thought he was winning the battle, and then we discovered that he wasn't winning the battle. They came to visit here, and my mother-in-law does seminars on health. You'll probably hear her here one time if you haven't heard her before. Vicki Griffin, anybody here for Vicki Griffin? She did come. Some of you were here. So she was here. And my father-in-law did a seminar for the church here, and while he was here, we played some racquetball. He was trying to hold on to his health as long as he could, and one of his favorite things was to play racquetball. So he played racquetball. That got me going to the gym. And then I roped my friend James into playing racquetball with me. James was dating at the time. And he was dating, and it was a good kind of date that ended in marriage. But it wasn't good for me because now my racquetball partner was out. But because I finally got, you know how hard it is to start going, right? You know, I want to exercise. I want to be healthy. I'm tired today. It's late. I just didn't register yet. All these things come up, and I'm like everybody else. I'm not an exceptional person, but that got me going. My father-in-law got me going. Just that racquetball game got me going. And so James was there. He bottomed out on me because he got married. Good for him again. Not so good for me. And so what I ended up doing after that is swimming. And I began to swim. When I started swimming, I couldn't finish a lap without coughing and sputtering. I can swim to save my life, you know, jumping off a boat or those kind of things, but I couldn't swim recreationally to have any, you know, I couldn't finish a lap. I'm talking about one length, actually, one length. So you're halfway down the pool, think I could stand up all length of the pool. So when I did halfway down, I would stand up in the pool coughing and sputtering, get my breath, and try to finish the rest of the length. But then I decided, okay, I'm going to just suck up my pride and sign up. So I signed up for an adult swim lesson. And I started getting swim lessons. And then I could finish my one length, and then I could finish a full lap. And finally, I was doing more than one lap at a time. And before I knew it, I was doing several laps. And then I began to think about triathlon. And I had that book at home. And once I realized I could do more laps than I had ever done in my life, I realized that triathlon might be my craft. So I went on the calendar, and I found that Derby was having a triathlon, and I counted down the days, and I had just enough time to follow a training program. And so I got on the training program. And that ended up, I finished my first triathlon. And so I'll bring in some lessons from that. This is not just about me. So there are some important lessons I've learned during that journey that I'll share today. And so I finished that first one, and that's a picture on race day. That was my first race. The race for me was a motivator. It wasn't. I do racing and engage in the sport for the crowd effect is incredible. On the Prairie Fire Marathon, we were running through Wichita streets. There were all kinds of nice people hanging out. You know, they have the regular race stops, but then they had other nice folks who had little juice and stuff for you, and just cheering you on, signs. You know, this is. You have 13, you know, what was it? Someone at the beginning said you have 13 miles. Some funny stuff. Anyway, one said this you train longer than the Kardashians' marriage lasted, something like that. You know, some funny thing. And there's something about running with 4,000 some people signed up for one of the 3 races that day. There's something about being in that crowd that energizes you for the experience and provides some kind of payoff for training on 90-degree days, and you feel like you're putting a foot in front of yourself. You have race day in mind, and then when you get there, you say, yes, it was worth training because I can finish. And so for me, racing is about being healthy. I probably will never podium in my life. keep up my lifestyle. When I'm in my 50s, I'll be on the podium. The friend that ran the Prayer Fire with us, he was third place in his age group, and if he hadn't started at our pace, he would probably take first place. He would have taken second place. First place, I think, 55-year-old first place was a local runner who finished his 5K run, which is 3.1 miles, in like 17 minutes. 55 years old. This guy, sometime maybe we'll interview him. He's an incredible runner. So he was in the next category up. So my friend would have placed second or third if he hadn't started with us. So he's a great runner. He's in his 50s. So I don't have his picture. Anyway, let's keep going, talk more about exercise. And I'm also, as part of this, have joined up with a ministry team. Then again, these are ways that I stay motivated. This group is a minister to young people, young families, and they have a race team called Revolution. And these are endurance athletes that compete in long-distance cycling races, long-distance in triathlon events, in long-distance running events. And it's a group of Christians that just want to be dedicated, use their exercise as a means of keeping healthy and inspiring others to be healthy, and as a means of promoting missions. They organize mission trips and things like that. So it helps me do more than one thing at once when I'm trying to be healthy, and I like it that way. I have a friend in Missouri, and I was hoping to get him on the phone today. This is his picture, Bob Burby, and somehow misplaced that all-important phone number, so we'll have to get him on the phone another time. Bob's in his 50s, and he was diagnosed with heart trouble. It's been a couple of years ago, and something that seems to come along with American aging is the arteries clog and harden, and the heart doesn't do its job quite as well, and what job it is doing is slowed down by the arteries being smaller. So Bob has a son who is an athletic trainer, and Bob decided that he wanted a different lifestyle. In fact, I think his doctor told him he was going to die if he didn't have a different lifestyle. And so he lives in Springfield, Springfield, Missouri. He was over 300 pounds, and in about a year, he lost more than 50 pounds. He began training to just get it moving, and now he has a regular exercise program. When we were with him, he watches his diet. He's very careful to captain everything he eats, because he knows that if it's not used up in activity during the day, it's going to go to his waste. And so he's very careful, and his diligence has paid off. He finished a 100-mile cycle ride, one-day 100-mile cycle ride in the month of September. And he also finished an Olympic triathlon this year. That Olympic triathlon is a 1,500-meter swim. That's about a mile swim. And then a 6-mile run and a 20 or 30-mile cycle. So he's finishing this. And he was over 300 pounds not so long ago. And he's in his 50s. So, and I'm not in my 50s, so if you're my age, so if you're more like his age. In other words, there's a place for all of us to improve our moving capacity and benefit from that improvement. The gentleman you saw that I rushed past, Scott Jurek, I wanted to put this in. There's a lot of promotion here at CHEC Wellness for a vegan diet. And some of people say, well, vegans have a disadvantage in muscle strength or a disadvantage health-wise because, we need to eat meat. Well, the fact is the largest creatures on Earth, the largest land animal is a vegetarian. So muscle building and vegan diet are totally compatible. Scott Jurek is an incredible athlete. He is one of the top athletes, top runners in the entire world. I'm going to just read a little bit of it here. He finished the historic Spartathlon, 153 miles continuous running. He finished the Hard Walk, which is a 100-mile run. The Badwater, which is a 135-mile run, took first place 2 years back to back. He finished the My Walk 1,000K run and the Western States 100-mile endurance run. He recently ran 165.7 miles in 24 hours. That's a new all-surface record in 2010. That's like 6.5 miles marathons in one day. For his birthday, he ran the Grand Canyon rim to rim and back. So he wanted to increase his game it was in 19 1990, let's see here. He came under the belief that the low-quality food that he was eating was affecting his running capacity. And so in 97, he adopted a vegetarian diet. In 99, he adopted a purely plant-based diet. His ability to run long distance has increased because of going all plant-based. So what you're learning here about going all plant-based and getting away from the processed stuff, getting away from the more difficult to digest meat diet, is known by top athletes to produce incredible endurance capacity and long-term health benefits. Anyway, so that's Scott Jurek, and my friend has invited my wife and I to do a canyon run. So we're thinking about that. That's quite the endeavor. And I'm not sure how you would train to run 6,000 feet up in Kansas. I don't know. Maybe I told my wife we have to go to the stadium and start running Wichita Stadium. Well, before I use my time, let's talk about being made to move. I find the biblical story of creation to be insightful as to how we're built as human beings. The Bible talks about, in Genesis 2:7, the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, man became a living soul. I find this fascinating because over the centuries, human beings have believed that we're this multi-part, that we're like soul and body. And Dr. Rady says, that's a false paradigm. We're a whole person. That's why what we do without, in other words, here's the deal. Over the centuries, this idea of soul and body being separate has contributed to people saying, well, I don't have to take care of my body as long as my soul is in good shape, right? Well, biblically, that concept of separation biblically, that concept of separation doesn't exist. We're actually a whole unit. So if we take the biblical paradigm, that means that how I take care of my body literally affects the health of my brain, my soul, my spirit, all of me. So this holistic perspective biblically is very important. That if I want good health, I've got to think about the whole person. If I want a healthy emotional life, I have to have a healthy physical life. I want a healthy spiritual life, I've got to have a healthy physical life because I'm not a component, I'm not a compartmentalized being. I'm a being that was made in wholeness at creation. And anyway, by the way, God gave human beings work to do. Adam was given the charge of the planet. And so from a Judeo-Christian standpoint, we were made to work from the very beginning. We're designed to move. And so movement is part of this package of whole living. And so if we take any one part, if you just go and eat junk food and exercise a lot, you're still going to have problems. If you eat a great diet and sit around all the time, you're going to have trouble. This is the book Spark I told you about. This is the one that Brady wrote. Well worth your time. Listen to this. The real reason why we feel so good when we get our blood pumping is that it makes the brain function at its best. And in my view, this benefit of physical activity is far more important and fascinating than what it does for the body. Building muscles and conditioning the heart and lungs are essential side effects. It's fascinating. We often think about the physical impact of exercise. Brady says, wait a minute. Let's think about exercise not in its capacity of what it does to my physical being, but what it's doing to my brain. In other words, he says the primary benefit is brain health, and a side effect of that is that you get physically more healthy. After all, if we're brain dead, is it worth being healthy? So really, our brain really is the prime purpose of living, right? To have a healthy brain. If you lose your mind, you've lost everything. You can lose a limb, a leg, and lots of other things. But if your body's deteriorating, that is the carrier of the brain, then you're losing the capacity to support good brain function. So we want to have good brains, good bodies, and Dr. Reed says exercise is about keeping the brain healthy. I often tell my patients that the point of exercise is to build and condition the brain. He's not just talking about having the will to finish. He's talking about the neurochemicals. He calls it a neurochemical bath. When you exercise, when you do cardio, when you get your heart rate up, your brain is bathed in a neurochemical cocktail. I think that's right, neurochemical cocktail. All these kinds of positive hormones, positive juices, you might call them, flood your brain and your body. Part of it gives you what they call runner's high, but more important unfortunately, the innovations like the iPad that help us be more sedentary are actually developed by brains that run better when we're not sedentary. Isn't it interesting? So the things that we do to make our lifestyle more sedentary are actually working against us because we need to move. Let's talk about some more of the benefits. And enhanced learning. Dr. Rady found there were schools that did research in New England, and they had school there with the kids that had a especially difficult time learning. They would put them in an exercise period, and then their hardest class was immediately following exercise. They would run with a heart rate monitor, and they would, and so, you know, you might have a young lady who's running at one speed and a young man who's passing her up. It wasn't about how fast they finished or who finished first, but about maintaining. They had to maintain a specific heart rate all the way around the track. Because really, heart rate determines whether you're reaching your exercise capacity. It's not who finishes first, but about if you're maintaining your heart rate, your target heart rate. And so they found that these kids did significantly better with this enhanced learning environment because of the exercise they did just before the most difficult class of the day. Reduced stress, damage. We all have stress. Exercise helps reduce the impact of stress. Helps provide clarity to the mind. Helps to even out the swings and the emotional swings and the physical impact of stress is benefit. We're benefited as we exercise. Anxiety. That neurochemical bath that floods the brain as a result of exercise helps to reduce anxiety. Part of the reason Dr. Rady says it helps with better mental health is because when you start sticking to a plan and seeing the impact of that consistency on your body, it raises your sense of self-fulfillment, self-esteem, because you realize, you know, I may not be cutting it like I want to work, but when I put my mind to exercise, when I put my mind to good health, I'm seeing a difference, and it gives you a sense of controllable success that you may not have in other areas of your life. So it's one of those ways you can take back life and do something and make a difference. Another one is depression. If you're struggling with depression, there are lots of factors that affect that. We have a depression recovery program here that will be advertised beginning sometime February, March, we're thinking about. So there are other factors that affect depression. But one of the significant relief factors is exercise. Exercise, again, because those neurochemicals bathe the brain, because you have a sense of success when you reach those targets. When you finish one day's workout, you can say, hey, you know what, I followed through with today's goal. And that can help you recover from debilitating depression factors, etc. Better attention, talking about attention deficit. And there are some folks, there's at least one lady in Dr. Sparks' book who carries with her a jump rope. And when she feels her ADD kicking in or her brain losing focus, she'll go out and knock out some jump ropes. That pulls her brain back into gear, pulls her attention back, and she's got that effect of it for a while. AIDS overcoming addiction. If you're dealing with an addiction, and you can, in Dr. Rady's book, talks about several addiction scenarios where when exercise was part of the routine, it helped the person have leverage, increased leverage over their addictions. And so hormonal changes is valuable for women. This can help in menopause. Exercise can help smooth things out. It certainly is not, this is not a cure-all miracle drug. Dr. Rady says it's close. In his book, not just about this, but in general. But it isn't a cure-all, certainly, but it is a very valuable part of it. It decreases the impact of aging. I've got a couple of good pictures for you that illustrate that. So if you want to age well, exercising. By the way, this impacts Alzheimer's. They found that for keeping your brain active along with regular exercise helps to reduce the impact of Alzheimer's. And Ed Whitlock. You know how old he is? Anybody want to guess? You guessed it. Whitlock. He's 80 years old. 80 years old. He has the body of a 40-year-old. Ed Whitlock recently finished Actually, he's 81. He recently finished the Toronto Marathon. And he finished it in 3 hours and just under, his time was 3 hours, 30 minutes, and 26 seconds. My wife and I, we're in our 30s, finished half of that in 2 hours. That means at 81 years old, Ed Whitlock was running faster than my wife. So your age is not something for you to stop and say, well, I'm too old. There's no such thing as being too old to improve your health, right? I hope you believe that because it's true. And okay, his halfway time, 13.1 mile time, which was how far we went, was 1 hour and 41 minutes. That's impressive. 81 years old. By the way, your exercise, cardio health, increases your body's efficiency at using oxygen. And oxygen use impacts brain clarity, etc. So again, exercise is amazing. This guy was in the little picture, 52-ish, 55-ish, and he said, I don't want to look like this. He's 72 in the other picture. I don't know how I aspire to look like that. But in other words, he started in his 50s, and by being diligent and focused, by 70, he was healthier than at 50. I'm showing you that just so you realize that your exercise can start at any time in life. You don't need to look like this guy, but you can make significant progress toward good health and reducing aging. So the bottom line is you can pursue fitness at any age. Let's talk about some focus points. There are 4 areas we should think about when we exercise. One is strength. We do want strength. Strength keeps our muscles in shape. And strength can even help to reduce, strength training can help to reduce the impact of aging or slow its impact. And so we want to keep our strength, keep our muscle groups in health. We also want to have flexibility. So stretching routines are valued. Part of your exercise should include stretching. We also want better cardio. And so these are 4 focus groups in endurance. So the point here is we don't want just one angle of focus. Don't get stuck just running. That's why I like triathlon, because I do racquetball too, because I'm not just stuck in one thing. It also helps me because I don't like doing this one thing over and over again. My name for the treadmill starts with a D, treadmill, because that's hard for me to sit there and keep myself going. So I have to have variety. Variety is, they've said, the spice of life. So have variety in your exercise. And make sure that you're incorporating this 4-piece spectrum. You can do it differently than I do. You can do it maybe differently than your spouse does. Men and women do things differently. What you need to do is find something that addresses those different areas, that helps you with your flexibility. You can do all of these at home, by the way. You don't need to have a big weight set to work on your strength. You don't need to be able to do push-ups to work on your strength. You can find them. Talk to a trainer at the gym. Go online and find something within your age group that helps you take those first steps toward better health. And so you can work on all these at home in a different way. Let's talk about lifestyle mentioned now. Let's talk about beginning. How do you get started? For me, getting started was playing racquetball with my father. Sometimes that start is the most difficult part. And I think my best advice on starting is just beginning. Ask yourself the question, what kind of exercise am I most likely to do? That's the kind of exercise you need to start. When you become regular at that, then you can start looking at, okay, what are my goals? What would I like to do? From that point up, once you get the ball rolling, then you can start tailoring a program that starts pushing you toward more specific goals. Maybe you do want to increase flexibility, but what you started doing is shuffleboard. But once you get that happening, then you can start thinking, maybe I'll do some stretches before my shuffleboard game. Maybe you're walking. You get that walk out. Your dog needs a walk. In other words, find a way to get steps. This is the biggest thing I learned from my triathlon training. I'm going to have to wrap it up here. From triathlon training, the biggest thing I learned is that small steps are what it's all about. I couldn't swim more than half a length of the pool without sputtering. But then my workouts totaled more than a mile before I ended up taking a break. My father-in-law did pass when he lost the battle. And that threw a wrench in the gears. This is the first race I finished, was 2012. The last race I did was 2010. So I took about almost a 2-year break from regular exercise because those things happen, right? And so what I learned is small steps make a big difference. You might think you couldn't finish a triathlon, but I believe that most of you, if not all of you, could finish a triathlon. You're thinking now, that's crazy. That's what you're thinking. But if you get on an 18-week or 20-week program, and you just begin with the small steps, by the end of the 20 weeks, you'll say, man, I'm healthier than I've ever been in my life, and I can't believe it. I'm actually ready to finish the distance. The key in exercise and reaching goals is not the end point. It's finishing today's objective. That's it. If you finish today's objective, when you get to race day, or when you get to the time that you want to reach your goal, you're going to say, hey, I'm here. I didn't start running 13 miles. I started with 2 or 3 miles. I started walking. In fact, my training program for the triathlon was walking. And then added into running. So the second thing I want to talk to you about, you mentioned riding, you mentioned keeping it fun. And take your friend, I forgot one thing to put on this. And I wanted to mention, this is really important to know, and that is that going slow is important. What surprised me along with the impact of small steps was that it's easy if you don't have to go out there and go crazy, where you feel like you're getting died into your workout. I thought that's how you had to prepare for a race. You had to run till you felt like you were going to die, but you don't. It's taking those small steps and doing them regularly at an easy pace, pushing your heart but not killing yourself, that are going to build up over time. So it's important. You don't have to be out there feel like you're going to die doing exercise to have good, positive impact. It's small steps over time that equal big change. That's super, super important. The biggest lesson I learned, small steps over time equal big change. Now you've seen this one. Oh, and the friend that was at the very end was a friend. Take a friend, find a friend that is willing to accompany you, and take that friend with you. That partnering helps so much. My wife and I run together periodically. That helps a lot. And so take a friend with you on the journey. Ask them to join you on the journey. Let's wrap it up. Some tools. I have a pedometer here, and you'll each get a pedometer today. So that looks like this. Your goal is 10,000 steps in a day. That's your goal. You can wear the pedometer all day, and when you see that you're a little short on your steps, you go out and take a walk. So 10,000 steps a day is approximately 5 miles. And my mother-in-law, who is very deep into health, says 5 miles a day is great. So 10,000 steps on this, you'll get one. You can log those 10,000 steps and reset it at the end of each day. You can hit the little gray button and reset that. So that's a great goal. I also use a heart strap, and my watch and the strap work together. And so I put this on when I run. And at the end of my run, I just did a run on Thursday, and it tells me my total time, it tells me my average heart rate, it tells me my maximum heart rate, and that helps me know where I was. So sometimes I'll run it on watch, and I'll keep it in like a 90% goal, and that helps me. I don't have to run a certain distance at a certain time. I just run a distance or a time frame at a certain pace. And so you can get tools like this. You can get them that if you like to use your smartphone, you can get a smartphone apps that your heart rate strap can hook to. You don't have to do all this stuff, but they are tools that can help you. You can find websites for tracking, see what other friends are doing, make friends in the exercise world. You kind of want to immerse yourself with people that like to exercise and in the exercise world, so that you're inspired by others. And hey, you know what? They're like me, and they started where I did, and look where they're at. So I can do that too. it provides their group incentive is very useful. Their journaling is super helpful. I have a journal, and I think I have it here. And the great thing about a journal is that I can go over time. If I go to the beginning of my journal, it says in May of 2010 that that I had a 250-yard swim. And then if I go to, let's see, find another swim one here. Okay, 6:20 in June of that year, I swam 400 yards. So it helps me watch how I'm doing. And so that's a great thing. I would encourage you to keep a journal, track how you feel, what you did, and that helps you see, hey, you know what, I started there, but look where I got because I stuck with it. So journals are super helpful. Participate in races, I do stay healthy, so pick a 5K or something like that, and that gives you a goal to train for, some objective to reach, and celebrate consistency of exercise. And get a coach if you need to. You can get a Y has coaching. Any fitness center has coaching available. Set goals and pursue those goals one step at a time in the hard step. If you want to run or want comfortable walking shoes, Scott Jurek, that long-distance runner, recommends these. A friend that my wife and I ran with we finished the race ahead of us at Prairie Fire. He wore these shoes. They're called Hokas, and he has no knee trouble during the race or before the race from wearing these. Even if you walk in them, they're called recovery shoes. They're active recovery shoes, so that while you're running, you're recovering. At the end of the race, you have less muscle burn. And so he uses them all the time. Randy ran canyon with them. And so great shoes if you're going to be on your feet and you want good, comfortable shoes. Hokas are probably the best shoe yet. I don't get paid to say this. Scott Jurek is of Brooks. Scott Jurek runs for Brooks, the Brooks Shoe Company. But when he recommends shoes in private, these are the ones he recommends. So I don't know if you should tell Brooks Company that, but that's what he recommends because that provides the best comfort. I think that brings us to the end, and I just encourage you to get out and move. Do the easiest thing it is that will get you moving. Find a friend to help you in that journey and set some goals. There's all kinds of exercise activities in the Wichita area, so sign up, find a race or activity that resonates with something you believe in, and set that on your calendar as a goal, and then find training layout on the computer to tell you how far to walk or run every day. And then when race day comes, you can have a good feeling of being there physically, in person, and have arrived there in your exercise. Any questions before we move to our next section? We don't have a lot of time. If there's any. Yeah. Okay, just look online because I haven't seen them in Wichita, but I haven't looked real hard.